Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sangham saranang gacchami. Today, we return back to the Jātakas. And I think we've been away for a few weeks. For today's Jātaka, I wanted us to go to the beginning, to the very first Jātaka. Because it has within it one of the most poignant events of Lord Buddha's past lives, which we see recounted in different places, and many books have mentioned it. And oftentimes people don't even know where it's from in context or in connection to what event, what teaching that the Lord Buddha was giving, that he included this. But it is the first Jātaka, Apannaka Jātaka, Apannaka Jātaka, and we'll dive right in. You've heard about the Anathapindika, the householder, the rich, wealthy banker, businessman who came from Savatthi. He was the one who built the monastery. You've heard me, I mentioned his story many times. But basically, one day, on one special evening, he has all his servants gather all kinds of special incense, robes, gifts, flowers, and he goes to see Lord Buddha to pay his respect. Of course, when Anathapindika was going to go to the Buddha, especially with such pomp and such prestige and so much effort and attention to detail with which he was conducting this, and also the reverence with which he was looking at every single facet and detail of how the flowers were arranged, this, that, and that showed that he had tremendous saddha. When we have strong, tremendous saddha, faith, and confidence, it shows in our behavior. So similarly with Anathapindika, his friends were impressed by him and his faith, because they were also followers of different teachers at the time, and different speculative views and that were predominant at the time. Nihilists and atheist teachers. You also had eternalists, teachers like Mahavir or Nigantanatha Putta, Sanjaya Bellati Putta, Ajita Kisa Kambali, Purana Kassapa, all these people. Purana Kassapa, these are some heretical view carriers and founders of those heretical views of India at the time. But they would see Anathapindika has a special relationship with his teacher, the Buddha. They have some reverence, of course, they would think, but then they would see this, and so they're doing a lot of compare and contrast, and they see that there's something special here. So they accompany him And they go and they see how Anathapindika makes his offerings, bows down, and circumambulates around Lord Buddha 3 times. Comes and sits down, and Lord Buddha is sitting there against the moon. He's glowing, and he's literally radiating light from his body as he's sitting on his special rock. It was red in color. So you can imagine that scene. And Lord Buddha gives them a teaching on the Dhamma. He teaches them the Four Noble Truths, but he also talks about how bringing to mind one's own homage and respect and refuge towards the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha really can take a person directly to either one of the 4 stages of awakening. Remember, Anathapindika was already a Sotapanna. So Lord Buddha teaches at that time how even recollecting the qualities of a Buddha is quite powerful. As well as the dana, as well as the respect. So they are so touched deeply, these 500 friends of Anathapindika who had accompanied him, they are so touched by him that they say, Bhante, you are our teacher. They are moved. Some of them moved to tears, inspired by the Dhamma talk given by the Buddha. And they start to take on some of the qualities shown by Anathapindika, meaning the quality of generosity, the respect for the triple gem, all these things. So they do that for several months. Now, during that time, Lord Buddha, this was happening in Savatthi. Usually Savatthi, the area of Savatthi, and Anathapindika kind of go together in the discourses, because he was from there. And we have many, many suttas, discourses covered, shown, taught, instructed by Lord Buddha in Savatthi because of that. So Lord Buddha leaves Savatthi for a period of time, and he goes to Rajagaha, which was the other major area where we see Lord Buddha teaching, the kingdom of Rajagaha, where King Bimbisara was, and then his son Ajatasattu took over. A bigger area of as far as the kingdom goes. So 7-8 months later, Lord Buddha returns back to Savatthi. And out of respect, of course, and delighted that the Buddha, his teacher, is back to his town, to Savatthi, Anathapindika again goes, again with big, with his lavish gifts and things like that, which didn't come from him trying to show off, mind you. That's what a student does. That's what somebody who doesn't want to miss the opportunity, because they know they could die any moment. And the Buddha had already said in the Dhammapada, we see this, where if a person has the opportunity to make an offering, they should not delay. Because countless have been those people who have thought, maybe tomorrow, maybe next month, maybe next week, I'll see if I want to support. I'll see if I want to give a glass of water to this person. Do not waste the opportunity to do good, especially on this case with Anathapindika. He never missed an opportunity to take care of the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, and especially his teacher, Lord Buddha. So that day too, he gets his friends to go with him, who are not that eager to go this time because they're kind of embarrassed. And Anathapindika openly says, Bhante, my friends here, 500 of them, to whom you've taught, and they were so inspired. Unfortunately, they have gone back to their old ways, old teachers, given up to see things clearly as they are. Because when you're discussing the Four Noble Truths, there's nothing involving blind faith in it. There's nothing that you have to basically believe. It's all there. The first noble truth, there is suffering. It's a mature position, standpoint, where you are acknowledging what's around you, what's happening in you. There's no lie. Next, you ask, what is the cause of that? There's no belief involved. There's a point of origin, right? There's a thing that led me to the suffering that I'm experiencing. So there, again, there's no blind belief necessary. You see, it's matter of fact. But then here is where everything changes. The Dhamma that Lord Buddha gave also gave us the third noble truth, which is there's a way out of suffering. And not sometime in a future life, one day, when you land in heaven, when you are, after this life, sometime later, may you find liberation of Nibbana even somewhere there, but not here. That's not what the Buddha teaches. Nirodha, cessation of suffering, happens here. Nibbana happens here in this life. That's the third noble truth. Again, there's no faith involved, because the moment you let go of fire, a red hot coal that you're holding, you'll drop it, the pain suddenly no longer perpetuates. We no longer are holding on to the thing that's causing us suffering. That's the third noble truth. But how? That's the fourth noble truth. How? Which is the Noble Eightfold Path. So the Buddha had taught these 500 friends of Anathapindika, and they had opened themselves to that. However, tendencies are hard to break, especially when we are talking about tradition and cultural pressures, peer pressures, etc. And the Buddha turns to them and says, is what Anathapindika is saying true? Is it true that you had gone back to your old ways of, heretical views, that, there's no, for example, karmic results, consequences to actions? That was one of the views. There's no mother and father. That's another view. There's no effect to good or bad actions. That was another view. Basically, like an atheist, this is it. This is where everything happens, and after this, lights out. That view was available and prevalent in some cases in India. And some of these students or friends of Anathapindika used to believe this because their teachers believed this. And many other wrong views. And they regrettably turn to Lord Buddha, and it ends in Anjali, kind of embarrassed. They say, yes, Bhante, yes, we did go back to our old teachers and our old ways of doing things. Because during that time, the 7-8 months, they had been living with generosity. They had been doing good things for others. They were keeping sila. They were keeping the uposatha. They were keeping, doing their fast, during the uposatha, taking 8 precepts, sometimes 10, as lay people. But now, eventually, it kind of dwindles and dies out. And that is how people are sometimes. Some people. We get inspired, but then we want to keep that momentum, that crescendo always going. We want to be inspired. We want to be moved all the time to maintain. But life doesn't happen with that much at that peak level of excitedness or excitability, which, the benign version of that term I consider to be inspired. There's other moments that don't look like that inspiring. And they are the majority of time that happen to us. So the key thing is, how well can I maintain that when things look dull, when things look too normal, boring? Status quo comes to mind, right? Because we are always looking outward, away from us, for things to excite us, add color to us. But that's not the path of the Dhamma. You have to push yourself through thick and thin, especially in moments and days and times where you do not feel like, because Mara's always over here trying to convince you that, for example, come on, let's break this sila. Why do I have to keep sila all the time? Example like that. Or why do I have to make an offering to this person? That. The other one speaks to me more, etc. Ideas, opinions, wrong view. So essentially, Lord Buddha was saying to these 500, you've gone back to your wrong views. That's a major, you take one step forward or 2 steps forward. Guess what? You've taken 5 steps backward. Now you're further back to where you started. From where you started. And Lord Buddha says, this reminds me of that event where a group of people foolishly followed a fool. And it was their destruction, to their own detriment. They followed a fool. Foolish people followed. This is exactly what, it reminds me of a scene, of a thing that happened, an event. And Lord Buddha doesn't continue. So, when Lord Buddha just said something and you're like, yeah. So Anathapindika does us a big favor yet again. And he fixes his robe and he says, he approaches with so much respect, and he bows down to Lord Buddha, because you don't sit in front of the Buddha. You don't sit in front of a teacher. It's kind of disrespectful. You don't sit at the same level either. You have to sit a little bit to the side, a little bit lower in position, so that, and the wind shouldn't come from behind you. So upwind, you have to be in a downwind position, so that, these are old, very old culturally. I think it's in our blood as a species. And you see this all across different cultures. So to the point where it's unspoken rule. So anyhow, he bows down to Lord Buddha and he says, Bhante, this is very basically interesting what you just said, and we love to hear more about it, because we live in this domain, in this world of the present. We live in this 3-dimensional world where we're only able to see what's in front of us, and sometimes not even doing a good job at that, So he says, Bhante, could you please elaborate on the past time that you just mentioned? In the past, you mentioned when and what were the details, Bhante? Could you please tell us so that we can learn from that? And that's when Lord Buddha starts recounting this Jātaka. So that's the background of Apannaka Jātaka. Long time ago, during King Brahmadatta's time, in the part of India that was called Kasi at the time, which is modern day Varanasi or Benares. Ganges River flows. There used to live a rich family, and they had a son, a young, adult son, who was there was a business. They were merchants, family of merchants, well-to-do, who kept, sila, and they had raised this son of theirs very well, and he was very intelligent and smart and able to handle himself in the business sense, and in the world, therefore. So one day he decides to go on a business trip. They used to do a lot of import-export. Eventually, we had the example of the Silk Road that went from China all the way, essentially, to Europe. So the son gathers the funds that he has, and he goes and gets himself 500 carts of oxen, basically 500, led by oxen, bulls, basically, and he packs them with material, things that are not found in the place where they're going to go to sell it to. It's an export business in this case. Meanwhile, there's another person in town, in the city, who also has, and is kind of familiar with him, knows him, but he's a fool. He's just basically the wrong person to be conducting any kind of business. So he's not working with all cylinders, as it were. So he says, I'm going to be doing that. I'll do that. So, and he has wealth, he has money, so he goes ahead and he packs his own caravan of 500 oxen with plenty of merchandise. Now, the smart merchant says, wait a minute. That means there's going to be 1,000 carts of material being pulled. That's a lot of oxen traveling. What are we going to eat? Wherever we land, even if we land into some city, we're going to need food. And what if it's 500, maybe you can get away with it. You might be in a city or a village or even a lake or a stream. You need to feed and supply water and food to these animals and the workers. Says, no. He says something, no. And he suggests to the other merchant, he says, listen, 1,000 carts moving is a lot. Why don't you go first? Or if you want, I'll go first, but it's up to you, he says. I'll give you that option. So he says, would you like to go first? Because it's going to be too much to handle. The roads, this, that, the pastures from where they're going to go. And the other one scratches his head and is like, yeah, I think he's not that smart, he says. Because I'm going to get the best of the best prices. Once I get to my destination, I'm going to get the best water for my animals and ourselves. And this is going to be great. He says, yeah, I'll go first. Okay, he says, the other one. Meanwhile, what is the smart, wise merchant thinking? He says, I'm going to give him about 6-7 weeks head start. Let him go. By the time he crosses a region, the roads would have already been, the rough roads that he and his oxen are going to cross, they're going to be flatter. They're going to be much better to handle, navigate, and we'll know where they have gone through. So we will have a path for ourselves instead of having to carve out a path for us had we gone first. So their going first is actually doing us a big favor. Plus the plant life. These animals are going to graze. They're going to eat. So whatever they're going to eat is not going to be the freshest plant life and vegetation. So by the time 6-7 weeks later, my oxen get there, they're going to be tasting fresh vegetation, fresh grass. That's healthier than weeds and things that have been chewed upon and trampled over and crushed. And the soil itself is going to get better and it's going to produce new shoots. He says, also, my men will have fresh herbs to cook with, to make curry rice and things like that. And this is going to be great. Plus, he says, I won't have to haggle the prices of the material that I sell because already the price would be set. Because if you've ever done business, especially if it's a new merchandise you're trying to sell, it's always a challenge to set the price. I remember from my days as a designer years ago when I was 18, I started my business as while I was attending Fine Arts Academy. I wanted to sell drawings of jewelry because I had a background in making jewelry. So I also drew the design. So I was trying to sell them. But, you know, it was very difficult at times to set a price for that. Eventually, you set a price and now you don't have to worry about it the second time around when you go to the customer and they see a drawing of a design of a ring and they know how much they're going to pay. So you don't sit down and do bartering, not bartering, but, negotiating a price. So anyhow, he says, at least I won't have to do that either. Hey, because the price will be set for this merchandise. Anyhow, the first group heads out. Long caravan, you can imagine, 500 carts of material, merchandise. After some time, the first group gets closer to the edge of a forest, wilderness area. And as it was customary, they would have to fill up the water jars with water because ahead of them was a desolate area, desertified or desert that they had to cross, where there's no guarantee that you will find streams of water or even lakes or rivers. So you don't want to take that risk. So they fill up many, many, many jugs, huge jars of water for themselves and for the oxen to make it through. So once they head out, fully loaded with carts full of merchandise and water, they see a chariot being, with a being riding on it, a person, and a group of other accompanying servants / soldiers accompanying that charioteer. Now the chariot looks very clean and white, except for the wheels and the edges of it are all covered with mud, wet mud, dripping mud. And the person riding this chariot has a long hair that's all wet. He's completely covered in, is drenched with water. And not only that, but he's carrying lotuses, wet lotuses. And the same thing happened with the accompanying soldiers, etc., who were with him. So they come across and they say, "Oh, travelers, where are you coming from? Where are you going?" And the man says, this is the fool, merchant, right? He says, well, I'm a merchant, and these are my men, my servants, and these are the things that I'll be selling. He says, where are you going? And he says, so in such a place, a city, kingdom. He says, oh, okay. He says, but what are those? Like your carts look like they're heavy. What is that? He says, it's dripping. He says, oh, it's water. He says, water. He says, water. Why? Why do you need water? Look at us. He says, we're all drenched. There's plenty of water where we're coming from. It's raining. It's been raining every day, he says. You don't need the water. The man says, why? He says, look at the lotuses. Look at the mud. And he's looking. He's like, yeah, he has a point. So anyhow, given the evidence, given what he's seeing and observing in these beings, he says, well, I think they have a point. I can just get rid of the jars of water. He says, yeah, you don't need them. Just get rid of them. At least you can actually pack up more merchandise, and you can go faster without that weight, extra weight. He says, yeah, that's true. And his men also, being fools themselves, believe this because, hey, they're seeing all these people being wet. So there's got to be water there. While they're in the desert, mind you. They haven't crossed the desert. They're in the desert. So they're believing the words of this person. Because, hey, they match the appearance of somebody who just walked out of a lake or a river, right? And lo and behold, and this charioteer and all that, he says, wishes them luck, and he disappears, goes away. And they destroy the jars, the water, and they say, he tells his men, just push forward, let's go faster, because we're going to get there sooner than my buddy over there who's coming behind me, catching up, I'm sure. And they continue going in the desert, in the desolate desert. They see skeletons here and there, animal skeletons long ago left there, material, pieces of wagons and carts and things. There's no water. The animals need water. They need water. Eventually, they run out of energy. They run out of food. They run out of wood to cut to build fire, until they're so faint they can't even get up. It's at that moment where that charioteer, along with his buddies and warriors, shows up. He was not a charioteer. He was a Yaka. They were Yakas. And this foolish man fell in the trap that being set up for him. He just walked into it because he didn't practice his wisdom. He didn't use just common sense. And yakas, this kind of yakas, they love flesh, living flesh, not animal corpses, beings that have died. They love to kill and eat the flesh of that being, human and animals. So they devour them, they kill them, butcher them, and eat their flesh, leaving nothing but skeleton, nothing but bone. It's kind of similar to, if you've ever seen the Lord of the Rings trilogies, especially the last one, Return of the King, where there is, of course, it's a fictional, novel, that one, where the ghosts, warriors or army, green, I think it was the color, they devour everything. They beat, they kill, this and that. It's kind of similar to that, the yakas. But the ghost can't take the shape of a human. In this case, that's what these yakas do. And of course, modern day, our society does not entertain ideas like this because we've manicured or photoshopped it out. We doctored these realities out of our reality, which is anything but reality. We believe in lies and deceptions, but we don't give a moment's credence to things that the Buddha talks about constantly. Yakas and beings like this, we see it all throughout. Unfortunately, we don't see that aspect of the Dhamma being promulgated and taught to the masses. It's become very heady, very intellectual, very, things that are not critically important for one's own survival and protection, because these entities, these forces do exist, just like the power of your own generosity exists. Your determination, that has a tremendous power. So it's not just the accumulation of data, which unfortunately Buddhism or the Dhamma has become for many, 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 many people. So we're trying to change that. So anyhow, they're dead. 6-7 weeks pass. Who shows up at the edge of the wilderness, at the edge of the forest? The smart merchant with his own 500 carts and men and servants. So he commands them to go ahead and fill up all the water jars. And they're huge, the water jars, if you've ever seen them. And he gets ready. They're all rested well enough, and they start heading out. And they've entered the desert. And who shows up again? Yes, the charioteer. Again, with the same prepared scene, drenching with wet mud all over the wheels. He's happy. He's carrying these lotuses as if with the stalk, and it's like a dripping wet. So any fool could see that, wow, he must have walked out of a pool or something, or a waterfall. But a smart person, a wise person, will have to look a little bit deeper, because they're surrounded by a desert. So obviously there's something fishy going on, as they say in English. So again, he starts with his old, monologue, the yaka. And he says, oh, where are you traveling? And he doesn't give him the time of day, the wise merchant, because he immediately spots that the yaka has red eyes. Also, the fact that he didn't have a shadow. Yakas don't have shadows. Most of these spirits don't have any shadow. They will mimic everything to convince us that they exist. They're right there. But if you ever come across a person and you look, and a book in front of you, a pebble in front of you has a shadow, and this person doesn't have any shadow, that's a big red flag, especially the red eyes. Should give him away. So he quickly sees this, and he sees that the accompaniment that he had, and he says, get out of here immediately. He doesn't waste time. He says, you evil yaka, get out of here. We have no time for you. Because the yaka is trying to convince him also to get rid of his water jars, destroy them. Because at that point, they also see the jars around them. Now, as these, he's shunned, because the yaka is kind of like, the jig is up, I'm discovered, my deception didn't work this time, so he takes off and tries to plan if he could come back, etc. Now, the men accompanying this wise merchant come in, and they say, but master, You saw how much water they were drenched in water. And plus, he said that there's a lake, and plus there was a rainstorm, this and that. He says, hold on. Look around you, he says. Do you see any life? And they say, no. What is it? He says. It's a desolate desert. He says, exactly. He said there's a thunderstorm going on for days. Right? How far could you be able to see if there's a thunderstorm? Like, how far should it be? As they say, at least like, a league, which is about like 5 miles or something, 2 to 5 miles. He says, look around you. Do you see any clouds formation? Any thunderstorm? Any lightning? And they say, no, it's just a clear, hot sky. This is exactly. Don't you think that if it was raining somewhere, we would have actually heard the lightning sound coming in from afar? How far can the sound of lightning carry itself? And they say, well, about a few leagues. This is exactly, you could hear it, but did you hear anything? So they get the point that there was a deception going on. Remember, he didn't say, trust me. He didn't say, you have to believe me. You have to do what I say. And that's what Lord Buddha has done in his explanation. Even the most simple sounding, the most idiotic question that has ever been raised and brought to the Buddha's attention, he answered it. No matter how silly it might have seemed, or even seem to us, but Lord Buddha has explained it in such a beautiful way where the person asking it gets it, or at least we do. Because the relevancy of the reasoning mind plus experiential information, experiential knowledge is there to be validated by life itself. So he was using the example of, okay, where are the clouds? Could you show me where the clouds are? Are they hiding behind the mountains? No, they should be there. If they were drenched this much, then it should mean that the clouds, some of it still should be there in the sky, but they're not. So obviously, and he says, the red eyes, did you notice the red eyes? He's like, oh. They remember. It's like, oh yeah, we noticed there was no shadow. Okay, he says, because now we have to move fast and we have to be on guard, prepared for battle. So they get there to their destination, and actually they don't get to their destination first. They get to the place where the previous caravan had stopped and were butchered, basically. So they unpack and they put the bulls or oxen around in a circle, and they surround the oxen because the oxen don't have means to protect themselves against the yakkas. So the yakkas, when they come, they would have to go through the people who are all, carrying weapons, including the wise merchant. He didn't sleep that night. He was standing guard along with his men. So they were taking shifts, but he didn't sleep. So anyhow, the next morning they get ready, they eat, they drink from the water jars that they had brought. And then he gives the command where he says, whatever merchandise we had, the other ones, if they had better quality, I need you to dump ours and pick up the other better quality merchandise from the previous caravan, because it's now nobody's. So they take the better goods, load them up, and they go and make the transaction and get to their destination. And then he eventually comes back to his own Kasi, which is Varanasi. The Buddha gave this example, and he says, the fools followed the fool to their own detriment, and they were destroyed. the intelligent, wise, who make a commitment and stick to it instead of being wishy-washy, always flaky in their own tendencies, which we see a lot of these days. People who come to the Dhamma, to Buddhism, to practice, they might attend a few classes, they might go to a temple, they might read a sutta or two, or listen to a sutta or two. They might make a few donations, and then it kind of dies out because something else they more attractive, something else over there they see that attracts it, like a moth, and they go there. And there's all kinds of justifications that human beings, we come up with to justify that lame move to be flaky, because nobody's going to call themselves, I'm a flake, I'm wishy-washy. How many people do you know will say that, honestly, especially in terms of the practice, in terms of the Dhamma? We always have some justification. So remember why Lord Buddha gave this story. And he says, do you know who the fool was? Fool merchant. He says, that was Devadatta. And who do you think were his accompanying servants? The foolish monks who follow him, call him their teacher. Those foolish monks are or were the people who were butchered along with him, Devadatta, that in that lifetime. And I was the wise merchant, as the Bodhisattva says. Lord Buddha also mentions to them how in times of trouble, in times of difficulties, one can even mention the Buddha's name as a protection, as a means to secure a sense of safety, security for oneself. A difficult moment in life, a difficult fork in the road type of a junction in your life where you have to make a decision and your mind is too perplexed, agitated. You don't know what's left from right, as they say. And you don't have time to go through the suttas to look for evidence to support the right thing that you must do, but you don't know what it is yet. So what do you have to fall back on? We have the qualities of the Buddha. Itipiso Bhagava Arahan Samma Sambuddho Vidyacharana Sampanno Sugato Loka Vidu Anuttaro Purisadamma Sarathi Sattadeva Manusanam Buddho Bhagavati. This is one of the paying homage, one as in one of the triple gem, meaning the Buddha, the others being the Dhamma and the Sangha. But specifically, I want to highlight that. You heard me probably say twice, Buddho, in that, the 6 qualities of Buddha, attributes. If one were to use just that, Lord Buddha encourages us, not just him, but also disciples of his, who have been practicing Buddho or Arahan. That was also a quality that I mentioned, right? And that has become their object of meditation, especially in moments where they are in a difficult situation. Or in your meditation, you don't know what to do because the mind is all gone, tumultuous ocean is going on there. Or you don't know what is the right path to take in this situation. Am I breaking sila or am I not? Just drop into your mind, into your heart, into a moment of stillness. Pull yourself away from that noise and just say Buddho, Buddho. And if you can't pull yourself physically away, just internalize your attention and just bring your attention to the breath. Or if you can feel the heart beating, just with every beat say Buddho, 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 and then stop saying it. Eventually, let it permeate and reverberate within you until it becomes a pulsating echo. But stay with it. And that can take you straight to arahantship. It has the qualities of the Buddha in there. And those 500 friends of Anathapindika are listening to Lord Buddha. Enough so that they start practicing while they're hearing Lord Buddha give the Dhamma talk. And they all attain to the first level of awakening. They become Sotapannas themselves, just like Anathapindika, their friend. So, in the commentaries, it is said that the power of this particular Jātaka story is so unique that this will be the very last Jātaka that will be forgotten before the Dhamma disappears. It's quite a poignant statement when you take it in. Imagine, before this sasana ends, and it will end, because it's conditioned. Sabbe sankhara anicchāti. Everything that is conditioned, it will be vanished. But before it does, this will be the very last one, and may it last for a long time. That's why we're, again, doing these sutta series, well, in this case, the Jātaka series, this new collection we started, so that we can prolong that time. But it's not just a story, remember. Without practice, it means nothing, ultimately. It's just a story. It's a fairy tale otherwise for many people. Many people take the Jātakas as that, unfortunately, when it's far more than that. It's more real than the lives that many people lead, thinking that they're living real lives. The Jātakas, in many cases, are far more real than that, because they hold such truth, because we've cut ourselves. In a sense, we've become like yakas, cutting ourselves from the shadow of reality, which makes us three-dimensional. We do things, say things we don't believe in. Well, what kind of a life is that? The Dhamma teaches us to bring it all together. Sila, Samadhi, Panya, the practice of virtue. Prior to that, dana, is bringing you into a place of singularity, a world of protection you're building for yourself and others too. Others too. Because of your virtue, you become reliable. You become an anchor of safety. That's a true lighthouse. That works, by the way. No matter the storms. But you can't do much with that if it's just that. Meaning you need to augment and support that with mental practice. I just gave the example of the Buddho, right? It just took a few seconds. If you practice that, you will see it. That's the beauty of this practice, this path. Earlier, I was saying there's no blind faith, there's no blind belief. The Buddha never said, you must believe in me because I'm the Buddha. Never, never. It's all practiced based. It's all tangible in your life right now. So try doing that. And you will see it. The qualities of the Dhamma. Ehi passiko. Come, test it yourself. Sanditiko, you can see it right here, right now. It's immediately effective. There's no time delay. There's no guesswork. There's no hoping for a prayer to come back. That's why some people ask me, oh, especially people who don't know Buddhism, much about Buddhism, let alone what bhikkhus are, what we're supposed to do, or what the Buddha teaches. And the topic of prayer comes up. And they're stunned when I tell them we don't pray. Like, but how do you communicate with the higher beings, this and that, the universe? How do you get what you want, type of a thing? Well, if the mind, the heart is in the right place, everything fits. And you live your life wisely. You do things wisely. Intentions are going to be wholesome, kusala, bringing you beautiful results. But not in the future, because the moment you practice sila, your mind, your body, everything about you is changing. Especially when you're practicing cultivation of the mind. Whether it's you're paying attention to the breath, practicing metta, practicing buddho or arahant, practicing the satipatthana especially, using the, let's say, kayanupassana, which is the body contemplation, awareness of the body, just as I said with the breath. Vedana nupassana is the contemplation or being present with the feelings that come up, whatever kind of feeling. You're just observing the beginning, the middle, and the end, especially the end. And then the chittanupassana, looking at the quality of the mind. Quality of the mind. Is it agitated? Is it restless? You'll be able to see without labeling. Labeling is unnecessary. You must be able to observe exactly what's happening. And then lastly, Dhammanupassana is where you observe all of the various different mental phenomena that happen and their relationships, such as earlier I was saying about the Noble Truths. You start seeing, oh, that's anicca. Oh, that's suffering. Oh, that's painful. You just observe it for what it is. There is no extra connection to it. There's no leaning into it. You're simply seeing it as a phenomenon. Similarly with the various different, if you have a lust, if you have anger, for example, if you can't seem to get rid of a negative state that's happening, it's like almost like that chewing gum that's stuck on you, you're trying to toss it, and it's just on your finger, you can't get rid of it, or on the bottom of your shoe. Just observe it. Observe, because it had whatever has appeared, there was a point of origin, right? So whatever is overwhelming now, you becoming fixated on it, there was a point of arising. Okay, if it has a point of arising, meaning that it was conditioned, it also will have a point of ceasing, ending. Remember the nirodha part? Now, you won't be able to detect the nirodha, the cessation, the ending of, in this case, suffering, in this case, the anger you had, let's say, or a disturbing thought. You won't see it. You won't experience it, the cessation, unless you're there to observe it. That's key. It's not conceptual. It's immediately effective. If you are there to see it. If you are there to see it. And so long as we don't practice this, by the way, I just gave you the Four Noble Truths again, in a practical sense. If we don't practice this, that's how the Dhamma will die. The teachings will die. And that's how it's dying, because not enough people are practicing the way Lord Buddha taught. We still treat Lord Buddha as a god or some type of a divinity of a higher power outside of here, me, my life. We've turned this beautiful Dhamma into whatever's already out there. It's despicable. It's shameful. That's not the Dhamma. The Dhamma is life. The Dhamma is the path. The Dhamma is freedom. From what? Not in another life, freedom from your suffering. And that's what all these Jātakas are supposed to serve, to help us to pull out from that yakka-like existence of ours that is shadowless. That's why we like to go just like that yakka, wanting to get more craving. Well, I want to go after this, after that, without living here, without being grounded in the reality of experience, which starts by realizing that there is discontent, there's pain, there's suffering. So we start from there. Be kind to yourself, be generous with yourself, and open up, open up. See a bigger future for yourself. You are not the world of mess ups and wrong things you have thought and done or said before. That's not the totality of you. If you're alive, Lord Buddha would say, this is such a rare opportunity. Remember, if Angulimala, the Buddhist, well, he wasn't Buddhist then, the serial killer, if Angulimala could turn around his life, not only that, but can become an arahant in the same lifetime as he, same lifetime where he had killed almost 1,000 people. If he could turn his life around and reach the apex, the goal of the holy life, in the same lifetime, then we have hope. Not only that, but we're in a much better state than Angulimala, right? So I will stop here, and may today's Jātaka story and words of Dhamma that I shared help you in your life, in your practice. May the Triple Gems blessings be with you, and let's transfer some merits for all the beings who make this possible. Akasatha Chabhumata Devanaga Mahindika Punyang Tanganamoditva Chirang Rakhantu Lokasasam. Akasatha Chabhumata Devanaga Mahindika Punyang Tanganamoditva Chirang Rakhantu Desam. Akasatha Chabhumata Devanaga Mahindika Punyang Tanganamoditva Chirang Rakhantu Mamparanti. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May you all be well. Until next time. Sukhi Hot.